for those of, how many people are new here that have never been to Cafe Janae before? Great, so lots of people, awesome. All right, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself, and we'll just get right into the gritty stuff. I am a nurse, and I'm also a holistic chef. And as I worked in the hospital, I came to the realization that 90 to 95% of the people that came into the hospital were there because of food and lifestyle-induced illnesses. 90 to 95%. That means they were in the hospital because of what they were eating or not eating, how they were exercising or not exercising, and what type of environmental toxins or influences they were putting on their body. 90 to 95%. And what happened when we were in the hospital? As a nurse, I was giving them drugs. The doctors were referring them to surgery. They'd come into the hospital very ill. We'd give them drugs and surgery, stabilize them, send them home, and guess what would happen? Several months later, or even sometimes several days later in a few cases, they would be back and they'd be worse than before. Drugs and surgery again, send them home after they're stabilized, they come back in. It was a vicious cycle, and I got to the point where I was thinking, I can't do this anymore with integrity because I know that they don't have to be here. There was this young man, he was in his early 20s, and he came into the hospital in a diabetic coma. He had type 1 diabetes, and they just gave him 2 years' worth of insulin, and he just dosed himself with insulin as he needed it. He had never been trained with diet or exercise to manage his diabetes. He came in a diabetic coma because his blood sugar had spiraled so far out of control that he just kept giving himself more insulin to control it until he put himself in a diabetic coma. Well, they stabilized him, gave him drugs, gave him crappy food, and then sent him home after he was stabilized. 2 days later, he was back, diabetic coma again. His body was not tolerating. He was taking a lot of insulin. He was taking, I think, like 70 units of insulin a day, which is just a crazy amount. The second time, when I was taking him home, they stabilized him. I was taking him out to his car, and I said, hey, do you have any strategies for how you can change your diet and exercise so that you don't end up back in the hospital again? And he told me that nobody had ever talked to him about managing his diabetes with diet and lifestyle. Did you know that just exercising can be as effective as insulin? Just exercising can be as effective as metformin and other blood sugar reducing drugs. Changing your diet can reverse diabetes completely in a short amount of time, like in a month. When you combine diet, so each just diet or just exercise could have fixed it. But when you combine those together, you could be totally healthy, even if you're type 1 diabetic, type 2 diabetic. No matter what chronic illness you have, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, fibromyalgia, pain, allergies, autoimmune disorder, all of these things are diet and lifestyle-induced illnesses. So I decided as a nurse that instead of focusing on putting people through this cycle of drugs, surgery, back again, not getting any better at all, I wanted to start helping people prevent and reverse their chronic illness so they never had to go to the hospital again, so they could live long and vibrant lives with healthy and strong bodies. And the way that I did that was by using my talents as a holistic chef. I've been a holistic chef for years now, and my favorite thing to do is to go into restaurants, eat some food that's not so good for me, but it's delicious, and I'm just moaning it's so good, and then go home and recreate it with whole foods, raw foods, live foods that are actually good for you, but it tastes just as good as the restaurant food that's not good for you at all, that makes you feel gross. So that's kind of been my hobby for as long as I can remember. And so I started putting these recipes into cookbooks and showing people how to change their life with diet and with exercise and with lifestyle so that they can be healthy. And when I talked to a business coach of mine, I was thinking about going into business and teaching, and the business coach told me, don't do it in Utah. People in Utah don't care about their health. They don't care. You're not going to have anybody that cares. Go to California, go to New York. People care there, but don't do it in Utah. I had so many people asking me and requesting me to teach them how to do this that I just started putting on classes. Anyway, even though my coach told me not to. And over the period of a year, I went from 0 people to now I have a list of 4,000 people that are crazy about learning how to do this. And so I disagree. I think people really want to know this information. They just don't know where to look. What are we bombarded with? We're bombarded with advertisements for crap, for junk food, for drugs, for everything that is bad for our bodies. We're not really exposed to things that are good for our bodies. So I firmly believe that by putting the exposure out there and teaching people that you can have control over your health, you can determine your health destiny. You can decide if you're going to end up in a nursing home or end up, living to a ripe old age with health and longevity. You can determine whether your kids are healthy, whether they grow up with disease or not, and this is what I want to teach. So that is the purpose of Cafe Janae, is to teach these principles so that you can incorporate them into your life and teach your family and teach your friends. And I just see it as this grassroots movement that is going to it's just going to explode. People know that drugs and surgery aren't working. They know that going to the doctor's office is going to get them drugs and surgery, and people are looking for a different way. So that is that's my goal and that's my mission. And so I'm glad you're here to share that with me today. Now, I'm training to be a nurse practitioner. I'm in my internship right now. And in the clinic I work in, oh gosh, how many? One of the prerequisites to getting into this clinic is you have to agree to change your diet and lifestyle because it's a holistic clinic. And that's just part of the deal. Is if we're gonna help you get better, you need to agree to change your diet and lifestyle. And most of the people that come in have digestive disorders, so they're either constipated or have diarrhea. They have indigestion, they have GERD, they have acid reflux, they have allergies, autoimmune disorders, eczema, psoriasis, headaches, pain, inflammation, all this kind of stuff. And do you know what the number one thing this doctor's office, all the doctors in this doctor's office do? We put them on a whole food, high raw, live diet, and we put them on probiotics. Why? Let's talk about, first of all, for those of you that don't know what probiotics are, what are probiotics? Probiotics are the healthy bacteria that live in your body, mostly in your intestines, and those are what compose 80 to 85% of your immune system. So if bugs from the outside, viruses and bacteria, are going to get into your body, how are they going to get in? First most likely way they're going to get in is somewhere, the tube that goes from your mouth out the other end, right? Like that's the way that most of the foreign things get into your body is through eating or through swallowing or through air in the environment. And so all those bacteria surround, so let's say it's just a tube, right? So you've got your mouth, goes down your throat, you've got your stomach, and then your intestines wind around for a long time, and it's just a tube. So what the probiotics do, these healthy bacteria, they coat the outside and the inside of your digestive tract, and what they do is they make sure that nothing foreign that goes in your mouth gets out into your body, okay? And it also regulates your white blood cells and the rest of your immune system. Now, if you have a robust and healthy flora, that's another name for your friendly bacteria or probiotics. If you've got a robust flora, your immune system is awesome. If you get exposed to viruses, those probiotics will kill it. If you get exposed to bacteria, if you get exposed to fungus, those probiotics will kill it. People with candida, they have candida because their flora is very weak and very damaged. And so what we want to do is make sure that to improve your immune system, to make sure that you're not getting colds and flus and viruses and parasites and all these things that we're exposed to all the time, you need a really robust internal flora. Also, people that have cancer have really weak floras. By having a healthy, robust immune system and a healthy, robust flora, your chances of cancer are drastically reduced. Your chances of obesity are drastically reduced. You know, by having a healthy flora and eating flora-rich foods or probiotic-rich foods, you burn fat faster and easier. Your weight stays down lower than if you don't. So we're talking about not just, do I have GERD or do I have a digestive problem or do I have a stomach ache or am I constipated? It goes way further than that. Like, how resistant are you to bugs? How resistant are you to cancer? How resistant are you to everything out there that's trying to attack your body? Little babies whose moms eat probiotics while they're pregnant and then are taking probiotics while the babies are nursing, they have a 60% reduced chance of getting asthma, allergies, psoriasis, and eczema. 60% just from being exposed to probiotics when they're babies from their moms. So this is a really big deal. Now, like I mentioned before, the doctor's office where I work, the first thing we do is put people on a diet and put people on probiotics to start building their immune system back up. Well, as those of you know who have tried probiotics before, probiotics are very expensive, especially if you get a really good probiotic. An average probiotic pill has between 1 and 10 billion colony-forming units. That's how you measure probiotics, is by a colony-forming unit. So that's like how many little bacteria are in there. Now, if one pill has, let's just say 10, those are really strong, good probiotics, if they have 10 billion colony-forming units in that pill. So if you have 10 billion, you need to take like 25 billion 3 times a day at least. This is like a medicinal dose to start healing your body and build your flora back up. That's a lot of probiotics, and that's pretty expensive. Well, doctors and researchers started to measure how much probiotics were in cultured food, and we'll talk about that in a second, versus probiotic pills. Now, I'll just tell you right now, and then I'll tell you about the cultured foods. One cultured pill, let's say it's 10 billion, one serving of sauerkraut prepared the right way, I messed up the punchline, 10 trillion, okay? So you've got as much probiotic force in one serving of sauerkraut as you would in a whole bottle of probiotics. That's pretty awesome. And instead of paying 50 cents to $1 for a pill or a serving of probiotic capsules, you're paying a few pennies for cabbage and a few minutes for stuffing it in a jar and culturing it the right way. So this is really a cost-effective solution for building up our flora and getting our bodies healthy. Now let's back up just a little bit and talk about lacto fermentation, okay? All of us in this room have grown up on canned foods, processed foods, highly cooked foods, right? Now when you can cook processed foods, not only are the enzymes killed, not only is the nutrition diminished, also all your heat-sensitive antioxidants, your vitamin A, C, and E, all that's done. All your proteins are denatured. So by cooking and processing food, you're drastically reducing the nutrient content, but you're also eliminating any kind of probiotics that are in the food. But if we back up a generation or two to our grandmas or our great-grandmas, they didn't have canned food. They didn't have processed food. The way they stored and prepared and preserved food was through lacto fermentation. Lacto fermentation means preserving food with a lactobacillus bacteria, and by fermenting it or by culturing it, it results in a byproduct of lactic acid. So the bacteria produces lactic acid. The lactic acid makes the solution acidic enough that it kills off all the bad bacteria, preserves the good bacteria, which is all your probiotics, and it also preserves the food so that it stays good for months or sometimes years, depending on what temperature you store it in, okay? So this is lacto fermentation. What did our grandmas and our great-grandmas ferment? Well, if you go to Europe, they fermented all their sausages, all their meat products, all their bread products. Nobody ever made bread without fermenting it first. That's how they made bread rise before they had packaged yeast, is by lacto fermentation. So all their cheeses, all their dairy, their yogurts, all that, all their vegetables, their fruits, their fruit preserves, their salsas, all their condiments. So if you go back, ketchup, mustard, salsa, all your condiments, fish sauce, all of those things were lacto fermented items. And what did they do? Well, not only did they give you all the bacteria you needed to keep your intestines healthy, keep your immune system robust, but all the lacto-fermented foods, they provide enzymes, okay? So I see a bunch of raw foodies here. So raw foodies, they eat raw food because it keeps all the enzymes. By cooking it, all the enzymes are killed. Well, by lacto-fermenting foods, you're actually increasing the number of enzymes multiple times. So you're like making not only just the regular enzymes in food, but you're like increasing that big time. So you got your probiotics, you've got your enzymes. Not only that, but you can turn your food into a supplement, into vitamin pills, and into medicine by lacto fermenting it. Let's take cabbage, for instance, okay? So in one serving of cabbage, you get a certain amount of vitamin C, right? And it depends where you get it, if it's organic or not, how it's grown. In one serving of sauerkraut, so it's an equal serving of sauerkraut with cabbage. So let's say there's 100 milligrams of vitamin C in your serving of raw cabbage, right? Well, there can be up to 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C in an equal portion of fermented cabbage because of the lacto fermentation process. Now, this is pretty amazing. Why? Because the vitamin C is bound up into the cell wall, into the cellulose of the cabbage, and by lacto fermenting it, it breaks down the cell wall and it enhances the nutrition and makes it more bioavailable to your cells. So not only are you giving yourself a probiotic supplement and a digestive enzyme supplement, but you're also giving yourself vitamin supplements. So your antioxidants, especially vitamin C. When you lacto ferment food, guess what vitamin you don't get in a lot of food, especially if you're vegan or vegetarian? B12. Okay, you get that from meat and eggs. You don't get B12 in a lot of vegetarian and vegan food. But when you lacto ferment vegetables, guess what is produced as a byproduct? Vitamin B12, vitamin B6, and a whole spectrum of B vitamins. So, and there's another vitamin that you don't get very often, vitamin K. That is also a byproduct of the lacto fermentation process. Vitamin K is really important for strong bones, combating osteoporosis, and lots of other stuff in your immune system. So you're getting all your B vitamins magnified, your C magnified, your vitamin K magnified. You've got your enzymes, you've got your probiotics. This is pretty amazing, okay? And this is just by lacto fermenting food. Not only that, it's the way our ancestors did it. That's how they keep themselves healthy. And as I was doing some research online, what I found out was it's best to take fresh food, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. Take fresh food and lacto ferment it to improve the nutritional quality, but there's a lot of people in different parts of the world that don't have access to fresh food. Like, where do I get baby cucumbers to make pickles? Or where do I get this fresh produce, especially if it's in the middle of winter? Well, what I found out is you can actually revitalize your devitalized canned food by lacto fermenting it. So if all you have access to is canned pickles or canned beets, not your best option. I'd recommend fresh first, but if that's all you have access to, you can lacto ferment cooked food to revitalize it, restore the enzymes, restore the bacteria, increase the vitamins. It's pretty amazing stuff. So, who wants to know how to do this? Yay! All right. Have I talked you into it yet? Okay. I wrote down some cool stuff that I wanted to make sure you guys heard. Okay, one thing before I start. Competitive exclusion. This is how your probiotics work. Competitive exclusion means you've got a certain amount of good bacteria in your body and you've got a certain amount of detrimental bad bacteria in your body. For instance, E. coli. You need it, but if it overgrows, you're going to be sick, right? So competitive exclusion means you want to keep your balance of friendly to non-friendly bacteria in your body about 85% friendly to 15% non-friendly. That's a good balance that makes sure you don't have candida, you don't have a poor immune system, you're not getting exposed, or everything that comes around. And so competitive exclusion means, I do the parking lot analogy, okay? So let's say you have a parking lot with 100 stalls, right? If all 100 stalls are filled up with bad bacteria, you can take all the good bacteria you want, you can eat all the probiotics you want, they're not going to make a dent because all those parking spots are filled up and there's only 100 spots. If you have 50 spots filled up with bad bacteria, you can fill up the other half with good and it'll be a little bit easier to get the bad guys out. So what you want to do is you want to get enough good bacteria in your body that they're taking up all the room, filling up all the parking spots so the bad bacteria don't have any place to go. Okay, so that's called competitive exclusion. And if your body is overridden with like Clostridia, or if you have an E. coli infection, or whatever bacteria is making you sick, sometimes you need to take an antibiotic, kill off the bad stuff, then fill it up with the good stuff, because just going in with the good stuff isn't going to work. So just keep in mind that sometimes it's important to do that. Now, here's a little quiz to see who in this room needs probiotic foods. I was going to do this at the beginning, but I forgot. Okay, raise your hand if you do any of the following. Drink tap water. Have taken, nobody in here drinks tap water? Come on, participate. Okay. Take tap water, drink tap water. Take antibiotics anytime in your life. Have high amounts of stress. Eat sugar, ever. Consume genetically modified foods. That's everybody, whether you know it or not, okay? Take birth control pills. It's okay. Take pharmaceuticals of any sort. Constipated, diarrhea. Have digestive disorders like GERD, acid reflux. Have allergies, autoimmune problems. You eat non-organic foods, or you eat packaged or processed foods. Now, if you, yay for the guy in the back shaking his head. Now, if you raise your hands to one or more of those, you are going to need probiotic supplements or probiotic foods, because all of those things I just mentioned kill off your probiotics in your gut, okay? Your probiotics can't survive in environments where those things are. All right, so let me make sure that I got everything that I wanted to tell you guys. It's important. Oh, one last thing and then we'll start. Where do probiotics come from? Like when our grandmas fermented foods, did they have little capsules to break open into their foods and stuff? Where do probiotics come from to ferment this food? From the air, from the water, and from the soil. So when you grow food in healthy soil and healthy conditions, the bacteria gets from the soil, from the air, and from the water onto the food, and then you use the bacteria on the food to culture your food. Now the problem is the way the farming is now and the way our environment is now, a lot of that, our soil is dead. Okay, there's no bacteria left in the soil, there's no nutrition left in the soil, so it's very difficult unless you're eating very organic, very awesomely raised food, which is not even your standard organic food. You're not going to be getting that, and actually the bad bacteria in the soil is getting to the point where that's overpowering any good bacteria that might be left. So our grandmas just used the bacteria, like if they're making bread, they just set out the dough, and they set out the slurry. The bacteria from the air came in, and that's how they made their bread, and that's how they cultured their milk. It came from the cow's udders, which were in the dirt. So I'm going to show you several different variations of how to make this, just because the original way to make fermented foods is to gather the bacteria from the air, from the earth, and from the water. But that's not really possible anymore with our chlorinated water and our devitalized soil and our polluted air, okay? So I'm going to show you some other options. Now, when I started learning how to do all this lacto fermentation, oh my gosh, it didn't go well at first. So many things went wrong. So at first I learned that you've got to I started with sauerkraut, right? You got to take the cabbage, and sauerkraut was the only fermented food that I'd ever heard of in my life. So you take the cabbage, and you got to cut it, and then you have to pound it. And I remember my mom was making it with us, and we even put it in a bag, put it under the car, and rolled over it back and forth with the car to smoosh the cabbage. Do you remember that? That was the low point of our sauerkraut making adventure. And then you put it in a big crock, and a lot of people use great big earth, like clay crocks. Problem with that is you've got 25 gallons of the same flavor of sauerkraut to eat for the rest of your life, and if anything goes wrong, it all gets spoiled, okay? So the problems I had with making sauerkraut was it would get spoiled, it was really hard to prepare. I was told that you had to break down the cell wall and crush it, and it was really time consuming, and the bad bacteria would get in, and then it would like mold, or it would kind of go funky flavored. And so I made lots of batches of sauerkraut that did not work out well. They just all went down the garbage, okay? And so I started looking into like, what else is there? Because sauerkraut's great, but not every day. And the recommendation is you want to be eating some kind of fermented food with every single meal of the day. It helps to break down the food you're eating. It helps to release the vitamins and minerals. It helps to break down the proteins, carbohydrates, and, the other one, Fats. Sorry. It helps to break all that down and to release all the nutrition, and gives it enzymes, and it helps to the lactic acid, which is the acid that's the byproduct of the bacteria, that helps to reduce transit time. So transit time is like how long does it take between the time it goes in and the time it comes out, right? The longer your transit time, the worse off you are, okay? So long transit time means your food is putrefying in your intestines, getting all nasty, producing all sorts of toxins, and making you sick. So you want a pretty quick transit time, and lacto-fermented vegetables and foods do that for you, okay? So you want to be eating this with every meal. So back to all the things that went wrong. So I started figuring out, like, okay, what else is there besides sauerkraut? Because that's like, it's fine for a little while, but it gets boring. So then I found out you can lacto-ferment everything. Your breads, your meats, your dairies. You can ferment your beverages, your condiments, everything. And so I just started doing these wild experiments. And as you can see right here this week, I was like the mad fermenting queen at my house, okay? Look at all these jars. Aren't they pretty? So this is everything. Here's some kombucha tea. This is a sweet breakfast sauerkraut that it tastes like a really yummy fruit salad. These are fermented mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms. They taste like little strips of steak. You can use this as a meat replacement. This is ginger ale, homemade ginger ale, full of probiotics, sugar-free. It's awesome. These are ginger carrots. So it's got lemon, ginger, and carrots in here. And it's a really great like breakfast or kind of a Swedish sauerkraut. Sweet-ish, not Swedish, sauerkraut. This is a garlic rosemary sauerkraut that's just to die for. It's really delicious. This is a red cabbage and carrot with lemon. This right here is, I'm just showing you guys the variety because I know cabbage doesn't sound great for everybody all the time. This is a berry kombucha. This is lemon, no. Oh, this is a Kool-Aid. This is a sweet tea flavored kombucha. This is lemon kombucha. This is water kefir. And this is fermented Perrier. Just kidding. It's not. Okay, so we've got lots of variety here. And I started looking into this, and not only did I figure out that you could pretty much ferment most everything, but then it's easy to add that into meals, right? If you've got a beverage, you can just take a little sip with a meal. If you've got something sweet, you can eat it with breakfast or dessert. If you've got something savory, you can eat it with your dinner. If you've got a bunch of different flavors, you can have variety, and then it makes it really doable and sustainable instead of just making 25 gallons of sauerkraut that you have to eat forever, right? That's not sustainable. You're not going to do that twice, right? Okay, so what I want to do is show you how to make this easy, how to make it delicious, and how to make it successful so on your very first try it works for you, okay? I've got a really great endurance for making mistakes and trying again, but I know a lot of people don't. So let's make it so you guys can have success on your very first time. Now this guy right here is, I love this gadget. It's a Salad Master chopper, and I love it. But you don't have to use this. You can use a knife. You can use your food processor. You can use a grater. You can use anything you want. I just like it because it's really handy, and it makes things really quick for me. And by the way, if you want to learn how to get one of these for free, come talk to me afterwards. All right. So here's my little graters. Like I said, you can use your food processor, grater, whatever you want. I'm just going to put this little blade on here. Now, first of all, we're going to make a sweet breakfast sauerkraut. And who wants to eat cabbage for breakfast, right? Nobody, not me. Make sure, rule number one, when you're making lacto-fermented foods, be very clean. So if you've got some bad bacteria on your counter, on your hands, under your nails, if you sneeze into it, whatever, that's going to ruin your probiotics, okay? So you need to make sure you're really clean. Make sure there's no soap residue on your dishes because soap kills bacteria. So if you have any soap residue that's not rinsed off, it's not going to work either because the soap will kill it. So aside from being clean, making sure there's no soap residue, make sure you have very fresh fruits and vegetables. If you have fruits and vegetables that are kind of dried out, it doesn't work well. If you have them old, it doesn't work well. So when you're getting your cabbage, when you're getting, this is jicama, make sure it's nice and juicy and fresh and watery. If you can get organic, organic is the best because then you're starting out at a higher baseline. You're starting out with more nutrition, no pesticides. If you've got a lot of pesticides on your vegetables, those are going to kill the pests, which are the bacteria, right? So try to get it organic. Make sure it's clean and juicy and fresh as possible. So we're just going to take a jicama. A jicama is a Mexican potato, and it's got a really light and crispy texture to it, and it kind of tastes like a mix between like an Asian pear and I guess it's kind of like an Asian pear. So it's kind of sweet, really juicy, nice and crispy, and I find that it works really well instead of cabbage as the base. Now the other reason jicama works so well, and that's called jicama with a J, J-I-C-A-M-A. It has a really hard skin on it, so peel the skin off. I've done that already. But probiotics are pro means helpful or good. Biotic means bacteria. So prebiotics, that's something else that's really important. A prebiotic is something that supports or feeds the probiotic, okay? So prebiotics are things like, there's lots of things. So we'll start with, have you guys heard of inulin? Inulin is a prebiotic. A lot of your probiotic supplements have inulin added in because that feeds your probiotics and keeps them alive. Some foods that are prebiotics, I wrote them all down so I wouldn't forget, but I can't find them now. I'll just tell you what I can remember. Prebiotics, your fresh herbs are prebiotics, okay? So any like basil, marjoram, oregano, mint, that kind of stuff, any of your fresh herbs. Asparagus, jicama has a lot of inulin, a very high amount of inulin in there, which is a prebiotic, which makes it perfect for making fermented foods because the inulin in the jicama is going to feed the bacteria, right? Let's see, what else? All your cruciferous vegetables are really great prebiotics. So your onions, your garlic, cauliflower, broccoli, did I say garlic? All those things are really, really great prebiotics. Okay, so I just ground up the jicama in there. And do you see this? It's just kind of shredded up really nicely. Don't even have to back over it with the car. And we've got an Asian pear here. And these are really crunchy. Now, you wouldn't want to use just a regular apple because you need something that's really juicy but firm. If you start out with soft produce, it's going to make like a mushy kraut or a mushy product. So you want something that's starting out really crispy and really juicy, and that's going to make your best texture of finished product. So we're just going to put like let's put 1.5 in there. Isn't this great? Then you don't need a cutting board. You don't need anything. You just go like this into one bowl and you're done. Okay, so we put 1.5 of those in there. Then I'm going to add some lemon zest. I've already zested the lemon here. Put that in there. And I'm going to add the juice of the lemon that I zested. And again, remember, fresh and organic if possible, especially if you're using the lemon zest. Make sure it's organic because you don't want the pesticides going in there. All right, so lemon. And then we're going to spice it up. So this is going to be like an apple pie sort of sauerkraut. It's going to be really delicious. So what else goes in apple pie? We've got the apples in there. And what's next? Yep, cinnamon. Okay. Now do this according to taste. All the Café Genet recipes, I give you something to start with, which I'd put like a teaspoon in here. But everybody's tastes are different. I like my stuff really, really spicy. You might not, so just kind of do it according to taste. Make it what you like. Vanilla, right? This is white Mexican vanilla. So I'm just going to throw a little bit of that in there. What else goes in apple pie? Allspice, right? So we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of that in there. And nutmeg. A little tiny bunch of that in there. Now I'm going to put in some stevia because I want to sweeten it, but I also don't want to put sugar in there. If you can use stevia, it's a non-calorie, no glycemic index sweetener. It's made from the leaf of an herb, and it makes it so you can sweeten things without adding sugar, and I really love that. Now, stevia is very potent. See this little spoon? That's equal to a teaspoon of sugar. Okay, so you just use a tiny, tiny bit. I'm just sprinkling it in there a little bit. We'll taste it later to make sure it tastes good. I'm wearing gloves because I don't know. I do know where my hands have been, but I'm just using gloves so that I can make sure everything's nice and sterile. But if you're at home, just sanitize your hands really well and you're great. Now for each quart of sauerkraut you're going to make, you need about a tablespoon of salt. Where's my spoons? Now what the salt does, this is really important. The salt makes it so the good bacteria in your food it creates a balance, right? So bad bacteria cannot survive in a salty environment. That's why they pickle things with salt and they preserve meat with salt, right? And so if you put salt in there, the bad bacteria can't take over before enough good bacteria grow to make the lactic acid to preserve it, okay? So the salt makes it so you get a good jump start on the bad bacteria not growing. And then, let's see, oh, here they are, right in front of me. Now, remember how I told you usually the bacteria comes from the soil and the air? Well, since we don't have bacteria in the soil and the air, one thing that kept going wrong for me over and over again is the bad bacteria would take over before the good bacteria could grow, and then it would just have an off taste or it just wouldn't work at all. So what I started doing was taking a probiotic capsule and just putting that in there at the very beginning, and what that does is it just kind of gives it a little jump start so that you've got enough good bacteria in there. So instead of taking 3 or 4 days for the good bacteria to build up, they're in there from the very start. And so that makes your success rate go up big time if you just put a little bit of probiotic in there. Now, you don't have to. It works with just salt. But I've found that if I just want to not worry about it and make it work every single time, it's worth putting a couple probiotic capsules in there from the very beginning. How powerful? These ones are 20,000 each capsule. So basically my rule of thumb is like for a quart, I want at least 20,000 in a quart. And sometimes I'll put a little more in just depending on what it is I'm working with. Now, the second thing you want to do after you've grated the vegetables, put everything in, you just want to make sure that the cell walls of your vegetables or fruits are kind of broken down a little bit. So what you do is you just get in there with your hands, or you can get in there like with those little wooden mallets, like a wooden tamper sort of thing or a meat tenderizer. You can just get in there and you just want to tamp it a little bit or massage it a little bit until the juices start to come out of your fruits or vegetables. And once the juice starts coming out, we're going to use that juice as the brine for the lacto fermentation. Now with fruits, you don't have to do it as much with the fruits as with the vegetables. So I just don't want this to turn out mushy, so I'm just mixing it a little. And we'll test this to see how it goes. Let's see. Do I have a little fork somewhere? Tasia, can you bring me a fork, Bubby, please? Thanks. All right, well, she's bringing me a fork. I can take one question. Yes? Is stevia and Raptura is a, thank you. It's made from cane sugar, and it's a crystallized cane sugar. So that comes from sugar cane, Raptura does. Stevia comes from an herb, which is a leaf. Okay, so I'm just going to taste it. What I'm tasting for is to make sure it's sweet enough. Make sure my spice balance is right. And it is. It's great. Now you can't see it because it's not a glass bowl, but at the bottom there's like this much of a puddle of the juice down at the bottom, and that's what I'm going to make for my brine. Now remember how I told you in the olden days they made fermented vegetables in crocks, in big clay crocks. Well, a couple problems with that. The big clay crocks sometimes had minerals or metals or something in there that weren't very good for you, so they'd leach out into your food. Also, you've got the volume problem. But with the crocks, what they would have is, so you'd have a big clay crock, and then you'd put a lid on it, and it would have a water seal around the top of the crock. Now, your friendly bacteria or probiotics are anaerobic, which means they grow without, aerobic means oxygen, and means without, and so it means they grow without oxygen. So if you have oxygen while you're lacto fermenting, it's going to favor the bad bacteria instead of the good bacteria. Anaerobic environments favor the good bacteria. So you want to make sure it's airtight, and you want to make sure no oxygen is getting in, okay? So the way I do this, there's two ways to do this, and I'm going to show you real quick. So you just start loading up the jar. I love using glass jars because this is the perfect amount so that you can eat it for a little while without getting sick of it. And it's also a good size to fit in your refrigerator when you're done. And the other thing is when people used to ferment all their things in crocks, they would have it fermenting in their crock for months. This is my mom over here, and we started our fermenting adventures together. Didn't we leave it in the closet for like 3 or 6 months when we did it at first? Yeah, so you had to lacto ferment your stuff for like 3 to 6 months before you could even eat it. By doing this jar method, you can do it in 3 to 4 days instead of 3 to 6 months, okay? So the same job in a few days instead of months. You don't have gallons of it to eat. And you can have some variety, so you can have a whole bunch of different kinds of things that are more interesting than all the same. So here's, I'm getting kind of messy up here. Okay, so what you want to do is pack it until it's 2 inches below the top of the jar. Now the reason for this is you need, when the fermentation starts to happen, one of the byproducts of the bacteria fermentation is lactic acid. The other byproduct is carbon dioxide. So you'll see, if you're doing it right, you'll see little bubbles starting to form around the food in the jar. As the bubbles start to form, it's going to push the liquid up and explode over the side. So anybody that's tried fermenting before knows what a pain it is to wake up in the morning and you've got cabbage juice all over the floor, right? And so there's a couple ways to take care of this. You want to make sure that there's 2 inches there, and 1 inch is for airspace, because it's going to rise. You're going to fill it up in a day or two with all the fluid, and you don't want it to overflow. And then you want 1 inch of juice or brine space to cover it to make sure all the vegetables are anaerobic or under the water, not exposed to oxygen. I'm going to show you a little trick that I learned how to make sure, because the other problem that I had was all the stuff would float up to the top. So even if I had enough water on the top to keep it anaerobic, all the stuff would float to the top, and then the top would get moldy because of all the stuff floating on the top. So check this out. You guys are going to love it. So whatever you're using, cabbage, or I'm using jicama here, or whatever fruit or vegetable you're using, you just make it so it's the size of the jar lid. You pack it till it's 2 inches down. Good way to know 2 inches. From your top tip of the finger to your knuckle, that's 1 inch. And then measure on your hand how much 2 inches is. Mine is to the bottom of that knuckle right there. So I can just measure to make sure it's 2 inches. You cut it so it will fit in the jar. It's just a thin, flat piece of cabbage or jicama or whatever you've got. And you stick it in there. And you do a couple layers alternating around the jar like that. And then you press it down, and it keeps all that grated food from floating to the top. Then you've got your water ring on top, which makes it so you don't get any air in there, and it remains anaerobic. Cool, huh? Yes, I thought so too. And then if you've got any little floaties, you can just pull them out. And ta-da! You have 1 inch of airspace, 1 inch of water lock. The flat stuff is keeping it down, and everything is anaerobic. Pretty cool, huh? Now, it's really, I mean, it seems complicated, but once you know all the rules, it's pretty easy, and you can have success every time. Now, I just want to introduce you to something super cool that I just found. If you're still worried about it, or you don't want to inoculate your stuff with probiotics, you can make it with just salt. And instead of that humongous crock, do you guys see this? It's called the Perfect Pickler. And what this is it's the same thing as around the top of the crock, the water lock. This is a water lock on top of here. So I just want to show you how this little baby works. And this makes it so your success rate will go up. So inoculating it with friendly bacteria makes your success rate go up. Putting the layer of something on top to push everything down makes your success rate go up. And here's our little Perfect Pickler. What it is, you've got this little empty cup right here. You put that down, and it presses down that thing that I put in there to make sure that that doesn't float up to the top. It's full of air, and when you press that down, all the juice comes up to the top of the rim, so there's no air in there at all. There's a little hole in there that goes over the cup, and it presses the cup down, but the air is inside the cup, not touching the juice or the water. You screw it on, you've got a completely airtight anaerobic environment in there. And then what happens when the carbon dioxide starts forming and it pushes all the juice up, instead of overflowing, it goes into the cup and fills up the little cup and doesn't overflow out of your jar. This little guy, you've got a little water lock here, so no bacteria can get in. The air, the carbon dioxide, can get out, because this is just, there's holes on the top right there. So carbon dioxide can get out, no air can get in. It locks it, and this makes it so your success rate goes up big time. Now, I got this for $20. It's just at the Bosch Kitchen Center over there, so if you're interested in that, they sell them. But I went online to their site, and if you buy 6 or more at a time, it's 40% off. So if there's 6 or more of you in the class that wants to get together and do a group order, let the people at the back desk know. We'll take your names, we'll do a group order, and then you can buy it for 40% off. And I'm not making any money off that. I just want to do it so everybody can have access to stuff. What did you guys think of that, the breakfast? Did you love it? Okay, that's more probiotics than pills, more enzymes than pills. All your vitamins and nutrients are exploding out of there. This is great stuff, and it tastes delicious. Could you eat that with breakfast? Could you eat you don't need a lot. With all your probiotic foods, it's not your meal, it's a condiment. It's something to eat with your meal to enhance your meal, okay? But could you eat that? Could you get your kids to eat that? They'll get used to it, yes?
What were the ingredients in the samples we handed out?
Oh, okay. That was, I make a really yummy summer salad with grapefruit, mint, lime zest, pineapple, and grapes and oranges. So anyway, I basically made that salad, mixed it up with jicama, threw it in there, and made a sauerkraut out of that. So that's what was in there. Yes?
You have lemon zest in this one.
Lime zest.
Is there any way, will you change any if I don't put the zest? Because it kind of makes it bitter.
Yeah, you don't, like, I just made these up. So I just threw in whatever I liked, and that's the cool thing with lacto fermented foods, is you can just put whatever in there you like, leave out what you don't like, and it works great. The important part is get your salt in there, get your bacteria inoculation in there, and after you get good at it, you don't even have to do that part, and then keep it airtight. So what I would do if I was at home is put the perfect pickler lid on there. Oh, there, thank you. So you can do it 2 ways. You can either put the perfect pickler lid on there, leave it for 4 days, and then you put it in the fridge, and you store it in the refrigerator, and these will keep good for months, okay? And the longer they're in there, the bacteria grows at a slower rate in the refrigerator, so it grows fast in a warm environment, slow in a cold environment, but the longer it's in the fridge, like up to 6 months, the flavor actually improves. And it ages kind of like a really nice aged cheese or an aged wine. So it gets better with time. So you can either put the pickler lid on there 4 days, then take it off, put a regular lid on, store it in your fridge for as long as you want, and just make sure the water level always stays above the fruits and vegetables. Or you could just take a regular lid. This is a little less successful, but you can do it. Take a regular lid, put it on, but don't screw it down tight. If you put the lid on tight and the carbon dioxide builds up in there, it's going to explode the glass. So you just want to make sure that it's on, but that the carbon dioxide can get out. Leave it on the counter for 4 days, and then put it in the fridge and store it after that. Now, these bacteria grow the best in a temperature of between 65 and 74 degrees. If it's above 74 degrees, you start to favor the bad bacteria a little bit more. If it's below 65 degrees, the bacteria can't grow fast enough, and it just won't lacto ferment. So I've found that around 70 degrees is like the sweet spot. It's a really great temperature to do stuff at. And usually our houses are around that temperature anyway. So if it's cold in the winter, what I do is I take this and I put it in the oven and just turn on the light. And then I have a little thermometer in there that tells me the temperature, and then I just keep it about 70 degrees in there. It does it that way in the winter. If it's the summertime and it's really hot in your house, you can get like a cooler, and put some of those blue ice blocks in there and just keep those in there so it's not frozen, but it keeps it around 70 degrees, and just make sure it stays 70 degrees, and you can do it that way. But just remember, don't screw the lid on tight until you put it in the refrigerator. Okay, I saw a question over here.
I was just making sure when it's in the fridge that the water level has to stay up.
Yeah, the water level has to stay above the food when it's in the fridge, or again, you're going to get mold or something. Huh? If it dries out, you can just add a little water on the top, yeah. Yes?
This process seems like sort of sensitive. How do you know if it's bad? Like after it's in the fridge, how do you know when it's gone bad after?
It tastes bad. So did you taste that? It was like savory and it tasted good. Bad bacteria tastes gross. It tastes like spoiled food. So if
As long as it tastes okay, you're not gonna like.
smell it, taste it, and as long as it smells good and tastes good, you're going to be fine. And it seems like the way I'm explaining it, it seems like a touchy process, but really, like if you use that little pickler thing, and if you do what I talked about, like just adding a little probiotics, like it's almost foolproof if you do that. Okay? Yeah.
I'm sure for demonstration you did all of these.
These were just because I was trying out new recipes. I was writing the book.
I'm doing one. Do I just want to do one and when it's finished do another one?
It's totally up to you. In my house, I love having like 3 or 4 kinds in the fridge at the same time because I don't like eating the same thing over and over again. So I'm a creator, so I love to create new things. So I do it different every single time. But if you like a recipe, keep making that. Or if, we've got 4 different kinds in now we have 20 kinds. But normally we've got 4 kinds in our fridge, and we just kind of rotate them around. And because it only takes 3 or 4 days to make, it's pretty easy just to make one, and then when one's half gone, start over again. So I don't want you to be scared of this. I'm telling you all the stuff that went wrong with me, but then I'm teaching you how to do it foolproof. So it's really actually super easy. And to make this, if I hadn't been talking, like that takes, 10 minutes to make that, just to grind it up, stuff it in a jar, put it on the counter. So it's not time consuming, it's not expensive, and it's easy and it's delicious, right? Cool. Okay. I can take a couple more questions while we're setting up the next thing. Yes? It totally depends on, the question was how much of a serving do you eat, and it totally depends on how accustomed your body is to it and what you feel like. So, for instance, when you start, your flora in your gut gets used to whatever you're eating and whatever your environment is. So if you're on a diet of pizza and French fries and soda, and then you start eating probiotic-rich foods, you're going to be gassy and uncomfortable and having indigestion, because what's happening is your flora is like, whoa, we're not used to this, right? But as you keep eating it, your flora will get used to whatever's new coming in if you keep eating that. So I recommend when you're starting out, start with small portions, just a little bit at a time, and then build yourself up to it. So I'm to the point where I can eat as much as I want. Sometimes I'll just eat a whole bowl of fermented vegetables, and that's my meal, and I can do that. But when I started out, it probably would have made me gassy and uncomfortable if I would have done that at first. So minimum, I would say, like a 1/4 cup with a meal. So I would start with a 1/4 cup and kind of work your way up and just see how it goes. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I'll need that one again. Thanks, here. Okay, one more question. Yes? Yes, so I've written an entire book. It's called Probiotics for Perfect Health, and right now it's got like 30 different probiotic recipes in there, and then I'm going to add all these more in there. So after tonight, I'm going to put all the new ones in, and I'll have like over 40 different recipes in there. So I've got the book, and I'm going to do a special deal for it at the end of class. So if you want to buy the book, great. If not, you can Google, fermented foods or lacto fermented foods. I'm sure there's an abundance of stuff out there. The cool thing about my recipes is I've tested and tried every single one of them. So I love delicious food. I'm totally a food snob, so if it's not amazing, it doesn't go in my recipe book. So if you want something that's been tested and tried and it's going to work, then that's a good way to go. But Google probably has billions of recipes. Okay, another question. I saw some more hands. Yes? Type 1 or type 2? Okay. So it would just be the carbs of, your carbs are going to be broken down differently. So it's not going to spike your blood sugar the same way as regular carbs. And we're also talking about whole foods, whole fruits, and whole vegetables. So those aren't going to be the same as sugar carbs or bread carbs, right? So I would just do an equivalent amount of, like this breakfast one I made. I would just do the equivalent, like a quarter cup. You know, what's a quarter cup carb of apples? You know, it's probably the same. But technically, it's going to be way less than that because of the way your body's digesting it. Does that make sense? So if you want the numbers, I'd do an equivalent amount of the fruit that's in there. But just know that your body's not going to react the same to it. Your body's going to react a lot better. Okay, one more question. Yes?
Is colostrum considered a probiotic?
I don't think so. It's not been cultured. So unless it's a cultured product, it's not a probiotic. But I do believe colostrum is a prebiotic. So it'll feed your good bacteria. Any other questions? Yes?
Kefir, would you still have to have it under 70 degrees?
The question was for kefir, and we're going to do the kefir recipe in just a little while.
But for the temperature, is it enough to get hot in your house?
It's, I just leave it in the oven, so at room temperature, and the kefirs always work fine just at room temperature for me. All right, next. Now we're going to do a savory sauerkraut. Now this is, I'm just going to show you the original sauerkraut. Now if you go out to the refrigerated section out here and get Bubby's sauerkraut, which is a live lacto fermented sauerkraut that hasn't been cooked or processed, it's going to be like, what is it, $7 a bottle? It's pretty expensive. For a quart jar of it, it's going to be $7 or $8. So I'm going to show you how to make the same thing as the Bubby's fermented cabbage or sauerkraut, but instead of it being $7 or $8, we're going to do it for like less than $1, okay, for the same thing. All right, so we've got my cool little salad master guy here. Now I'm going to show you a cool little trick with cabbage. If you take the jar, here's how to make the little seal, the cabbage seal with this. If you take the jar, find the little rib on the cabbage, and that's going to be the strongest part of the cabbage. So you take that and you put your jar on top of the rib right there, and you take your knife and you cut around the jar and use the jar as like a template to see how big you want that little cabbage ring to be. I'll show you the, okay. See that I used the jar to make the little circle, so that's as big as the jar. And all you do is you just cut through there about 3 or 4 leaves deep before you shred your cabbage, and what that does is now it has your little bottle seal all ready to go. Okay, so just do that before you grate up your cabbage, because if you have a pile of grated cabbage and you're out of cabbage and then you don't have your jar seal, you'll be sorry. Okay. All right, I'll do it with the clear bowl this time so you guys can kind of see how it works. Okay, did you guys know cabbage is an anti-cancer food? It's a cruciferous vegetable. It's really great with all its anti-cancer properties. It also helps you to build your immune system. All of your cruciferous vegetables are immune builders. It's very high in your antioxidants, and in the core of the cabbage, not in the leaves, but in the core of the cabbage, there's a property in there, and I forgot what it's called right now, but when you, pepsin, there's pepsin in the cabbage core, and what it does is it helps you to, it's like a digestive enzyme. You take those, they sell them in the pill form. You take those and it helps you to digest your food better. If you pull the core out and don't eat it, then you're missing out on all those awesome digestive enzymes. So the cool thing with this is you can grate that core down really small. The core's kind of, it's just really hot and spicy, like it'll burn your tongue. And so you don't want to eat that straight, but if you just mix it up with your cabbage leaves, then you're not even going to notice it because it's just going to be a really small amount, but you'll still get all the benefits, the health benefits of it, okay? Okay, so we've got the core and everything in there. Do you love it? I love this thing. It's my fave now. This thing's made out of stainless steel and titanium. I just feel like so buff when I use it. Arrgh. Okay. And it makes for a really quick preparation. Just don't have to worry about knives. That was the other thing when me and my mom were first learning how to make this. We sat there with our knives, and for hours, we were chopping the cabbage for hours, and we're just like, geez, when is this ever going to end? And it never did end. So this makes it really easy. Food processor would also make it super easy. All right. Whew, this is like a lot of exercise. I'm panting up here, talking and working out at the same time. That's the other cool thing about the salad master. You get your workout while you're making your food. Okay, now remember, 20 times the vitamin C of regular cabbage and fermented cabbage, the same serving. Okay. Now I'm showing you how just to make the standard regular Bubby's sauerkraut. Just plain cabbage, salt, and water, and that's it. But that gets kind of boring after a while, and if you'll notice up here, I don't have any plain sauerkraut up there because it's boring. So I'm going to show you how to spice it up, make it really fantastic. Okay, so we've got our cabbage. Now, how much salt per quart? Do you guys remember? 1 tablespoon. And my tablespoon's gone, so I'm going to eyeball it. The other thing, if you are concerned about the salt content, I have 2 comments for that. Did you know that your stomach cannot produce hydrochloric acid without enough salt? Okay, so salt is not bad. However, processed salt is not good. So I recommend 2 different kinds of salt. Here it is. Okay, when you choose a salt, make sure you choose something that is mineral rich and has not been processed. Your normal iodized table salt has been processed at 1200 degrees, had all the minerals taken out, it's had chemicals added to it to bleach it and to process it, and it's totally devitalized. Your body cannot handle it anymore. Your body can't digest it, it can't use it, and that's why it causes spikes in your blood pressure and all the other adverse health benefits. If you use a pure, real, mineral-rich, non-processed salt, your body can take that up and use it. Salt is an electrolyte, so it helps to keep your electrolytes balanced. It gives you what you need so your stomach can produce hydrochloric acid to digest and break down your foods. And the way you pick a good salt is make sure that it has some color to it. Okay, so this is Celtic gray sea salt. I don't know if you can see it, but it's really moist, and it's also gray. That means all the minerals are still intact. This is Redmond's real salt, and you'll notice it's kind of like pink and orange in the little salt crystals. This is also very mineral rich and not processed. So you can choose whatever kind of salt you want, but those are the 2 I recommend. And a tablespoon of salt in there. And again, what are we going to do? We're going to massage the cabbage. Now with the cabbage, it's a little more important to massage than with the apples. Like with the apples, you didn't want to crush it too much, but with the cabbage, you want to keep massaging it until the brine starts to form at the bottom of the bowl. And usually it takes maybe 3 to 4 minutes of massaging this. You can also take like a wooden mallet or a wooden tamper and just kind of smash it like that. But I find that it's really fun, especially like if you have kids, put a pair of gloves on them, tell them not to sneeze in it. Yes, Tasia is back there waving. She loves to get her hands in the food. Yeah, let your kids get their hands in the food and have them massage the cabbage, and just, you know, it just becomes part of you. And I truly feel that, well, here's what I think. Love heals, okay? Love is the one thing that can heal everything. And there's a couple raw food restaurants in the area, and one of them is Omar's. And I went in there, and he's got his menu up on the wall, and every single item on his menu says, as one of the ingredients, love. I can't remember if it's the first or the last, but I remember the first time I went in there, I was like, oh, that's so funny. Look, everything has love in it. And then I met Omar, and for sure it did. He totally does put love into everything. But the more I learn about healing and the way the body works and how we're just social creatures and combining it all together, how our emotions work, love heals. And you can infuse all of your food with love and have your food become a medicine, not only just by what's in it, but what you've put into it as well. Now, if you're picking the highest and best quality food you can. So if you're picking organically raised, humanely raised food, you're preparing it yourself, you're not devitalizing it, and you're serving it to the people you love to heal them and to sustain them and to make their bodies healthy and strong. Like, that's totally different than going and buying a TV dinner from the freezer and putting it in the microwave, right? Like, can you see how the amount of love that goes into that food makes such a difference? Not just the quality of food, not just the vitamins that are in the food, but the intent behind the food and the intent behind the process makes a huge difference. And at first, when I went into Omar's restaurant and I saw that on the wall, I just thought it was funny and cute, and I would make comments and tease about it all the time. But the more I learned, the more I realized he was right on the whole time. He had it totally right, and I've tried ever since then to infuse all the love I can in the food for my body and for my family's bodies and for all of you. Okay, so now everything on my menu is made with love too, thanks to Omar. Okay. Okay, so we're done. Do you guys see how there's, I don't know if you can see it, but all the juice is coming out. There's a nice puddle of brine down on the bottom. And all you would need to do is pack that in the jar. I'm not going to do it because I'm going to do something fancy too. Then put a couple layers of your little lid plugs in there. Push it down. What you want to do is pack it down in there really good. And I use my hands. You can use a tamper, whatever you want. But push it down as hard as you can. Get it packed down as tightly as possible. You want the inch of water, then the inch of air. Put that in, press it down, put the lid on. 3 to 4 days, you're done. Put it in their fridge, okay? Now, that's boring, and I don't do boring. So what we're going to do is a little something fancy. There's a bunch of different kinds of onions, okay? This is a sweet onion. Onions are also cruciferous vegetables, cancer-fighting, all that kind of jazz. Good for your immune system. You can get yellow onions, which have a lot of bite to them. They're really spicy. You can get red onions, which have less bite and a little more flavor. You can get white onions, even less bite. Or you can get sweet onions that have the least bite of all, so they're not going to be spicy and burning your tongue, but you still get that really great onion flavor. So I use onions, sweet onions, just because then you can get the flavor and the nutrition properties without burning your tongue and making you not eat it because it's too hot. Okay, so we're just going to put in a little bit of onion. Who likes Italian food? I'm going to make an Italian kraut that you guys are going to love. Okay, so I put that little onion in there. And then what else goes in Italian food? Fresh basil, okay? Now, you don't want to put too many soft leaves in. Fresh basil has lots of soft leaves in it. You don't want to put in too much because soft leaves go soggy. Kale, like the curly kale, which is really stiff, or the black kale, those are really great because they don't get soggy. But if you're going to put soft leaves in, I'm only putting these in for the flavor, not necessarily for the volume, because they'll get soggy, but they're going to make it taste really yummy. Which one's that? Garlic rosemary? Okay, so this is garlic rosemary sauerkraut. Now, the longer, this one might have a bite to it because I only made this a few days ago. I made it like 4 days ago. So it's got all the lactobacillus benefits to it, but the longer you leave it in the fridge, like if you left it in the fridge for a month or two, all the garlic bite would kind of mellow out and it would be more savory than kind of garlic bitey. So if it is a little bit bitey, just leave it in the fridge longer and it will mellow out and age with time. What do you guys think? You love it? That's not plain sauerkraut, right? It's way better. Yes? Yes, so the question was, will heat bother the probiotics? And the reason why you want to keep it between 65 and 75 is because that's where it proliferates the best. Now, your body is anywhere from like 96 to 100 degrees, right? So you can probably get it up to 100, maybe 105 degrees at the most, but I wouldn't go any higher than that because any heat higher than like 100-ish degrees is going to kill the bacteria off. You'll still have some of the enzymes. The heat kills off the enzymes as well. The heat kills off the vitamins, so the vitamin C and everything. So I would keep it below 100 degrees. So if you wanted it on pizza, cook the pizza, take it out of the oven, then put the sauerkraut on top after it's come out of the oven, and that'll preserve it. Okay, so we've got fresh basil. We've got some green onions. Throw those babies in there. What else goes on Italian food? Sun-dried tomatoes. Now, make sure when you're making your krauts, You don't want any soggy fruits or vegetables in there because they'll just turn to mush. So regular tomatoes will turn to mush. Red peppers will turn to mush. Soft fruits will turn to mush. So make sure that if you're using tomatoes, use sun-dried tomatoes. Use green peppers that are a little more firm. You just want to make sure it doesn't start out soft or it'll go really mushy. What else goes on Italian food? Parsley. Parsley is also really great for your urinary tract and also good for detoxing. And it's got tons of antioxidants in it. And we've also got some garlic, right? Garlic goes in Italian food. Now, I recommend doing a garlic press with your garlic just because the bigger the pieces of garlic are, the more it's going to be kind of bitey. And it just mellows it out a lot faster if you've got crushed garlic instead of whole garlic. But I've also done it where I just stuck the whole clove in, and the whole clove kind of flavored it, but then I just never ate the whole clove. So you can do it either way you want, whatever works for you. Whoops. All right. So we've got some garlic. What else goes in Italian food? Carrots. Now, did you guys know that most of the nutrition in a carrot is right underneath the peel? So if you peel the carrot, guess what you're doing? Getting rid of most of the nutrition, okay? So I recommend scrubbing your carrots really good, but don't peel them. And then you're going to get most of the nutrition in that carrot, okay? Now, something else fun, besides having flavor variety for non-boring sauerkraut, is having color variety. So what if all those bottles up there were like the same color, right? If they were all just kind of bland or beige or something, it wouldn't be great. But when you add color, you're feeding your eyes before you feed your body, right? Before you're feeding your mouth. And that does a lot for stimulating digestion and for making it more pleasurable to eat, okay? You want to feed your eyes first. You want to feed all of your senses. You want to feed your sense of smell second. And then you want to feed your sense of taste third. And then you want to make sure that you get the feedback from your body like, oh yeah, that was good and I feel awesome now, okay? And so this is going to do all of those things. It's going to feed your senses, and it's going to make you feel really, really amazing when you're done. Okay, what else goes in Italian food? Italian seasoning. Okay, so we're just going to put some of that in there. Rule of thumb is just depending on how flavorful you like it. I like mine stuffed with flavor, so I'm going to put a ton in there. If you just like a hint of flavor, then just put a little in. It's up to you. Here's some black pepper. Black pepper is really great as a digestive aid, but only if it's raw. If you cook it, it turns into a digestive deterrent. So be careful with that. We've got some red pepper flakes to give it a little bit of spice and sass. It's pretty good, huh? Okay. So we've got all that in there, and then we're just going to mix it all up. And we've got a really amazing Italian sauerkraut that's going to be so good. So as you can see, if you just make a few flavors, no matter what you're eating for dinner, you can find a complementary flavor. And just have this as like part of your salad, right? You got a quarter cup or a half a cup of kraut on the side, and you're all ready to go. Isn't that pretty? So I'm not going to do it again because we want to get to the last recipes and the raffle. But there you go. Do you have any questions about the Italian kraut?
Tell me why didn't you just cut up the basil leaves?
You can. I was just in a hurry, so I didn't. And they're going to get mushy anyway, so the more you cut them up, the mushier they're going to get. So I mostly put them in there for flavor. You could put dried basil in there, and then you don't have to worry about it, too. Any other questions? I've wowed you all. Yes, all of these things are going to be in my recipe book. Now remember, I'm going to give you recipes to start out with, and then you guys can get creative and make it work for your personal taste buds. Okay. Let's, who wants to learn how to make kombucha and kefir? Yay, okay. Okay, give me 1 second and I'll be back. Yes?
Apple cider vinegar, is that considered a probiotic fermented food?
You can get raw apple cider vinegar that is a probiotic. So if you get the, Bragg's raw apple cider vinegar, that still has the live active culture in the bottom. You can kind of see it floating around at the bottom. So that is a live active probiotic culture, yes. Any other questions? Okay, yes? You can use whatever kind you want, but when I'm choosing a probiotic capsule, I look for two things. Strength, which is how many colony-forming units are in it. So it goes anywhere from 1 all the way up to 250 billion, whatever. So I'm looking for strength, and I'm also looking for breadth. So how many different kinds of bacteria are in that supplement? You can get ones that just have one type of bacteria in there. You can get up to 20, 25 different kinds of bacteria. So I pick one that's a very high strength, so at least 20 billion CFU per serving, and then something with at least 6 different species of bacteria in there. If you can find something with more, I'd get the one that has the most, because what you want is a lot of variety, okay? You want tons of variety of bacteria in your gut because they all do a little something different, and you'll just be able to strengthen your forces better with variety. There's 2 kinds, when you're looking for a supplement, there's 2 kinds of bacteria that you'll get in the supplement, lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. Those are the 2 kinds that are in there. And there's different species of each of those kinds. So you want at least 3 of the bifidobacterium, 3 of the lactobacillus at least, and more if you can get them. Just read the label and it'll tell you all that information on the label. All right, any other questions? Okay, whew, I'm out of breath. This is hard work. Okay. Thank you. All right. Kombucha tea, what is it? Who's heard of it before? It is. For a little tiny bottle, it's what, like $5 or $6 for a little tiny bottle? Okay, I'm going to show you how to make it for like 5 or 6 cents per bottle, okay? This is going to be amazing. And you're going to love it, I promise. Now, the thing with all this is, I'm talking a lot and explaining everything to you, but really, the sauerkrauts took less than 20 minutes to make. Like, that's a really complicated one. 20 minutes total, and you've got as much as you want. Kombucha tea takes as long as it takes to make a pot of tea. That's how long it takes, okay? Really, the hard part is just knowing the rules so that the bad bacteria doesn't get in there and overproduce and ruin your product. Like, that's the hardest part, and I'm teaching you all the tricks for that. So what is kombucha tea? Kombucha tea is a mixture, generally a mixture of green and black tea. And what they put in there is called a SCOBY, or a kombucha mushroom, SCOBY. I'm going to pull it out if I can. It looks like a placenta, I think, but you tell me what you think, okay? Only touch this with sterile hands because, again, it's alive. This is a live organism, okay? You guys see this? Yeah, gross, huh? So anyway, that's in there. Try not to think about it. Okay? What this is it's a symbiotic colony of beneficial yeasts, beneficial bacteria, and other beneficial organisms that are so amazing for your body. There are, I can't say that something cures anything in here, but there's a lot of testimonials online about people that have used kombucha tea to cure pretty much everything, okay? It has lots of different amino acids in there. Amino acids are what you use to build up they're the building blocks for all the proteins in your body. And your proteins are what make up your hormones, your muscle, all your tissues. Everything's made up of proteins, and the building blocks are your amino acids. So everything from your emotional state of health, depression, your immune system is made up of proteins, okay? So these amino acids are the building blocks for your healthy body. And so the kombucha mushroom, what it does is instead of putting the probiotic capsule to lacto-ferment your vegetables or your fruits, you're using the kombucha mushroom. It's like hundreds or thousands of symbiotic bacteria and yeasts and other organisms in there that are fermenting the tea you put in there, okay? So this is to yogurt. What yogurt is to milk, this is to tea, okay? Kombucha is to tea. What sauerkraut is to cabbage, kombucha is to tea. And what it does also is it grows on top of when you put your tea in there, the SCOBY, or the kombucha mushroom, grows on top of the tea to make it anaerobic, to keep the air out, to keep all the top bacteria from coming into the top, and it keeps it nice and healthy so everything beneath it is nice and acidic and healthy and only the good bacteria back there. So it seals it off. And so traditionally it's made with a combination of green tea and black tea. However, I'm very sensitive to caffeine, and so when I drank regular kombucha, I just got kind of wired and I didn't like it. So I figured out how to make it with rooibos tea, Rooibos. And what that is, it's an herbal tea that has amazing properties to it. And actually, rooibos tea is a medicinal tea that heals lots of things on its own. But once you ferment it, remember, all the nutrients, all the healing properties are expanded and enhanced when you're fermenting it. So I use rooibos tea, or you can use a combination of green and black tea. Depending on which tea you use, it's going to give you a different flavor. And again, you're lacto fermenting it, so it's going to make kind of a vinegary flavored beverage out of the tea. And what that does is you can, I'll teach you two different ways to do it. You can either do a batch kombucha or you can do a continuous cycle kombucha. Both of them have different benefits and drawbacks. So just for the regular kombucha tea, for the batch kombucha, I love using, do you guys see this? It's got the little spigot on it. This is great because then, I used to make it in a big gallon jar like this, but then after the tea was done, I'd have to like pull out the SCOBY, dump out the tea, put it back in, and there was lots of touching of the SCOBY going on, and I kept getting contaminated. So I find when I do it with this glass jar, with the little spigot on it, that way I don't have to keep touching it. I just pour the tea in top, and I never have to touch it, and it stays really great that way. So you can do it in a glass jar like this, or in a glass jar like this, or whatever you want. I would recommend doing it in glass instead of plastic because it's going to be acidic, and acids are generally solvents, okay? And so when you have a solvent touching plastic, it's going to start to dissolve the plastics into whatever you're making, and you don't want to do that. Also, you can't use metal because metal will kill the culture, okay? So do it in glass. And all I've got in here is the SCOBY with a little bit of my past batch of tea in there. And, okay, strong person, come help me. All right. No? We've been foiled. Kombucha demo ends now. Ah, thank you. We loosened it up for you. Thank you. Okay, so the SCOBY digests the tannins and all the ingredients that are in the tea, and it also lives off of sugar. So what's going to happen is you're going to put sugar in, but you're not going to get sugar out because the SCOBY will digest the sugar, and it will take all the sugar in the tea constituents, and it'll turn it into your vitamin B complexes, all your amino acids, and all those other health-promoting properties. But you've got to put the sugar in there because that's what the SCOBY eats, is sugar. Now, I tried it with honey. I tried it with molasses. I tried it with Raptura. I tried it with all sorts of other kinds of sugar, and nothing seemed to work. This, like, just regular organic cane sugar seems to work the best. You don't want to use white sugar because the cane sugar actually has more minerals in it, and the SCOBY will also digest the minerals. So just get the organic, like, raw cane sugar, and that works the best. 1 cup per gallon of cane sugar. We're going to shake this up. I would stir it, but I can't. I don't know. Oh, that's the sugar lid. I'll shake it because I can't stir it. I don't have a spoon. Okay, and that's all it is. So you brew a big pot of tea. You've got 1 cup of sugar per gallon of tea. And then you dump it into the jar with the SCOBY. Woo! Oh, those were the tea bags. Don't freak out. Okay. And that's your kombucha tea. Now, it takes kombucha. Same thing with kombucha. You want to keep it between like 65 and 75 degrees, and that's the temperature that it works the best at. Now, you don't want to leave this top open because bugs and flies and dust will get in there. So I usually just take a paper towel, stick it over the top, and put the rubber band on the top. Now, it takes about 2 weeks before all the medicinal health properties of the kombucha tea start to react. So leave it in. I just put it, I do mostly raw foods, so I don't use my oven. So my oven is my laboratory, right? So I stick all my things that are growing in my oven, and that's my garden, right? That's my bacteria garden in my oven. So So this goes in my oven for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, you can taste it. So a sweet tea went in, right? And then in 2 weeks, it's going to start to taste a little bit like vinegar. And you want it to be down to a pH of at least lower than 4.5, okay? So I usually get mine down to a pH of like 3. You can get the little pH test strips to dip it in there to find out. Oh, I forgot, with the sauerkraut, if you're worried about it and if it's your first time and you want to be all scientific about it, get pH test strips. You can get them for cheap at, I don't know where you get them, the fish store or whatever. And you dip it in there. It's got to be below 4.7. So if your pH is below 4.7, it means that enough lactic acid is built up to make it so that it preserves, right? So this needs to be also below 4. I usually do like a 3.5, and that's how you learn to make it. So at 2 weeks, you get your first wave of really awesome health properties. And then, so at day 14, awesome health properties. Day 30, you get a whole different batch of awesome health properties. So instead of just making one batch, drinking a batch, and making another batch, we've got the continuous brew cycle, which is another method of making it. So you drink it down to 25%, so like drink 25% of it, and then make enough sweet tea to fill it back up again and dump it in there. So what you've got is you've got tea from yesterday, you've got tea from a week ago, you've got tea from 2 weeks ago and from a month ago. So all the different stages of healing properties that are in there, you've got the full spectrum of them, okay? Otherwise, you'd have to have different pots, like one pot of 30-day-old tea, one pot of 15-day-old tea to get all the benefits that possible. So if you do the continuous brew method, when you add the 25% of sweet tea back in, wait 3 or 4 days, because it takes about that long for it to start digesting the sugars, and then start drinking again. So what we do is we just, there's about a gallon in there, so we'll drain off a quart, put the quart in the fridge, put another quart of sweet tea in there, and then while we're drinking the quart in the fridge, it's going to be 4 days while that's fermenting. Does that make sense? And if you don't, remember this is a living creature, okay? So I've gone on vacation and forgot about it before, and I came home, and it was dead, okay? And or if it got too hot, once we turned on the oven, it was in the oven, I forgot, and it died. So it's a living creature. It's your pet. Take care of it, okay? And it'll take care of you. So the continuous brew method is what works really well. Now I found that it tastes kind of vinegary. Did you guys taste that one? What did you think? Good. It tasted great because it didn't taste vinegary because I'm awesome. Okay, so what you do, you take it when you pour off your quart to put in the fridge. Throw in some frozen berries. I threw some frozen mixed berries in, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. That sits in there, and the acid, remember, is a solvent. It dissolves all the flavor out of those berries. I put a couple squirts of stevia liquid in there, so it sweetened it up, shook it up, and you've got like berry Kool-Aid, right? But it's got all these amazing health properties in there. So you can either just drink it plain, which is fine, or throw in some lemons. You can throw in lemon zest, just slices of lemon with the peel. I've done it with ginger. I've done it with orange slices. You can do it with peach slices, any kind of fruit you want. So you can just put whatever flavoring in there you want. Don't put it until you put it in the fridge, though. You don't want to put the fruit in with the SCOBY, okay? Drain off the quart, put the fruit in the quart by the morning time, just overnight. It'll suck all the juice out of the fruit, and the fruit will look like a vampire sucked it. The fruit will be all pale and white, right? So take the fruit out, and then you've got it all in the juice. It will smell funny, and when you put your tea in there, it won't make the vinegar out of it. It'll just kind of go rotten. Yeah. That much what? Air? Yeah, because remember the SCOBY seals it off. So within a day, the SCOBY will like create like a barrier over the top, and then it'll seal it off from the air. So the tea is never touching the air and then if you can see this, where's the tea coming out? It's coming out from the bottom, okay? So if you just don't disturb the SCOBY, it'll keep it airtight. Yes?
Where do you get SCOBY?
I order mine online. So just, type in Kombucha SCOBY and you just get it mailed to you. Or if you have a friend, the SCOBY keeps growing. So if you have a friend that has a SCOBY, have them cut it in half and give you half. SCOBY. Or you can Google like kombucha mushroom. That will work as well. Yes? No. I just didn't want to carry it home with it full and sloshing all over the car. So usually I fill this baby up. Any other questions? Yes?
I just wanted to ask if these were beets in this jar that
This one has beets and red cabbage in it.
So you just did that the exact same way.
Yes, you can use any fruit, any vegetable. Do it the same way. Not soft ones, though, but any kind of firm fruit and vegetable. Do it the same way. Mix them to your taste, and it's all the same.
Where did you get this container?
This, I got it at Home Depot. It's for the water jugs that go on top. You know, the 5-gallon plastic water jugs. Home Depot. Any other questions? Yes?
So the fermentation, does it make the food more acidic?
It produces the lactic acid. So lactic acid does make it acidic. But the thing, oh, that's awesome. Okay, so you've all probably heard of acidic conditions or alkaline conditions in your body, and alkaline is better. When you're using live lacto fermented foods with lots of lactic acid in them, they're acid, but they actually create an alkaline environment in your body. So it will alkalize your body better than anything. Yeah, questions? Okay, we're getting to the end of our time. Do you guys want to stop, or do you want me to show you kefir? Okay, keep going. Sorry, I don't. It always takes longer than I thought. Okay, we'll do kefir if you guys want to stay. And then don't leave because we've got the raffle. All right. Oh, where'd my kefir go? Actually, if you don't mind the caffeine, the SCOBY will digest the caffeine as well. So you might start out with a certain amount of caffeine, and the SCOBY will digest it. So you've only got a tiny amount of caffeine left. So if you're not uber sensitive to caffeine, the green and the black tea actually work really well. You might, even if you use the rooibos tea, you might want to throw in a black or a green tea bag, because black and green tea has tannins in it, and the tannins actually feed the SCOBY really well. So if you're not super sensitive to caffeine and you want to use rooibos, at least throw a black or green tea bag in there so it has enough tannins to keep it going along. Okay. Kefir. You guys see this? Looks like another alien from outer space, right? Okay, so kefir, you probably heard of kefir in the sense of milk, right? So you can put a kefir culture in milk and it kind of makes a yogurt type substance. Well, for people that are raw food or don't want dairy, you can also make a water kefir. So these are called kefir crystals, these things at the bottom, or they're also called Japanese water crystals, I think. And they just, they're the same thing, same type of idea as the SCOBY. So it's a symbiotic relationship of a colony of bacteria and yeast and other beneficial organisms, except for they clump together and it looks kind of like large curd cottage cheese. It's a little bit like gummy candy or something. And it does the same thing as the SCOBY does, but it just does it to water. Or you can get those young baby coconuts, the Thai baby coconuts, crack them open, dump the water out, and then put the crystals in the water, and it'll feed off the sugars and all the nutrients in the coconut water to make you yet another awesome beverage. So you also get these online. And the recipe for this, just because we're out of time, I'm not going to demonstrate it. It's very easy anyway. You get the little kefir crystals. Now, instead of kombucha taking 2 weeks to a month to ferment, this takes 2 to 3 days. So you can get a beverage really, really quick off of the kefir crystals. So for 1 quart of water, it's 3 to 4 tablespoons of sugar for 1 quart of water. You mix the quart of water with the 3 to 4 tablespoons of sugar, or you can do a quart of coconut water from the baby Thai coconuts. Throw it in there, and I just put a paper towel over the top. Now this has holes in the top. You don't have to be so careful about this being anaerobic, just because there's the water seal on top of it, and it's not really a problem. So I just put a paper towel on top with a rubber band, leave it at room temperature for 2 to 3 days, and then you do the same thing with it. You can either drink it straight, or you can throw fruit in there to flavor it up, or I've got these little herbal tea bags that taste like different fruit flavors, and I'll throw a tea bag in there, and it'll flavor it up, and it actually tastes like Kool-Aid. So my daughter loves it. She's like, yay, I get to drink Kool-Aid, right? And so that's all you have to do. Don't throw the fruit in there with the crystals. Again, it's the same as that kombucha. Pour it off. I've got this lid on here. It's a sprouting lid. See that with little holes in it? And I put that on there because then you can dump out the finished kefir into another jar, flavor it with your fruit or your little tea bags or whatever, or stevia if you want it sweeter, And this one tastes more like, the kombucha tastes like vinegar. This tastes more like a really good wine. Okay, so it's got kind of a boozy taste to it. There's not really alcohol in there. There might be trace amounts of alcohol, but there's no alcohol in there. That's the way that it ferments, and that's what it tastes like. So you can put the fruit in there, and then you have to immediately replace it with another quart of sugar water, because if these dry out, they die. So you just have to keep making it over and over and over again. Okay? So we usually just make one, drink it, and then by the time it's gone, the next one's ready to go. And just you get a package of them online, and you just throw the whole package in there. These will grow as well, so you can, if you want to make more, like after it grows, you can divide it and put it in 2 jars and then be making 2 jars at a time. And then this little lid, it just catches the crystals, when you pour it out so the crystals aren't falling out. And then before you add more water to it, just throw some plain water in there, swish it around, rinse them off, and then if for any reason like bacteria or anything got on there, you rinse them off, and then you pour in the sugar water. Okay? Kefir, water, kefir, so there's milk kefir crystals. You don't want those. You want either water kefir crystals or Japanese water crystals. They're called both things. Kefir grains, yes, also called kefir grains. Thank you. Yes?
Do you have to use sugar?
This is a little more forgiving with alternate forms of sugar. But I found that it dies a lot faster if you put other types of sugar in there. So you can just experiment with it. Like, I've used honey in here before, and that works. It just, the outcome, like it turns out lots more boozy if I put honey in there, or if I used molasses once. That was gross. Don't try that. You can also throw some dried fruit and a little bit of minerals in there. So if you have like ionic minerals, like trace minerals in a supplement, just throw a little in there, and the culture loves that. So any kind of minerals you can put in there, because it'll grow and it'll taste really good. Yeah, it tastes really delicious. So you can throw in a few pieces of dried fruit, like dried pineapple or whatever you want in there to flavor it up. And this one, you can put the dried fruit and the minerals right in there with the crystals, because they actually eat up all that stuff, and they love it.
You put the dried fruit, do you also need the sugar?
Yes, you still need the sugar. The dried fruit just kind of gives it the minerals and the flavor to enhance it. Yes?
How often do you reuse your crystals?
You keep on reusing them over and over again. And mine have lasted for like 6 months now. So I keep forgetting about them. Like I go on vacation and I forget about them, and then they die. So I just keep reusing mine until I forget about them and they die, and then I gotta get new ones. So they'll last as long as you keep feeding them. They'll last for a long time. Yes.
How much do they usually cost? Like, what's a good price?
I think the SCOBY was like $20, and the kefir crystals were like 12 or 15-ish. But they last forever. Like if you get them and you take really good care of them, they're going to last forever. Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
Cold water?
Yeah, cold water's fine.
That was my question. Does it matter what kind of water? Like, use alcohol?
Don't use tap water. Tap water will kill it. Don't use alcohol. Just use regular, like, reverse osmosis water. Add a little minerals to it, like ionic minerals, and you'll be good. Yeah, tap water will kill it. Alkaline water probably won't work well with it. Distilled water or reverse osmosis will work great. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes? You can. It's not going to hurt it. Just swirl it around. But yeah, it's not going to hurt it. The SCOBY, you don't want to shake it up because you want it to keep that seal, so you don't want to disturb it too much. But they're really robust. It's hard to kill them. Any other questions? Yes?
Does mold or anything build on that spout?
It doesn't, just because, remember the parking lot thing? If there's enough good bacteria around, the bad bacteria can't live. So I've never had a problem with it, but if there is a problem with it, just make sure you keep it wiped off, and so there's nothing for mold to grow on there. Yes, Tasia? Bring it up, baby. Who wants a raffle? Yes?
Just one other question you mentioned in your email was about serotonin.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that a little bit?
You bet. So the question was about serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that regulates your mood. So if you're depressed, your serotonin's not working properly, right? So guess where 95% of your serotonin lives and is produced? In your gut. Same place where all your probiotics are. So if you have a really strong and robust intestinal flora, you're going to be making good amounts. And if you have a good diet and you're getting all those building blocks in there, you're going to be making lots of serotonin. You're going to have an elevated mood. You're going to feel good. And your depression is going to lift, okay? But if you don't have a good probiotic environment in your gut, you can't produce the serotonin, and the serotonin can't live there just because it's such an unhealthy environment. And it can't work properly. So there's not enough amino acids to build everything and to make everything work, and your neurotransmitters can't move between the synapses the right way. So by doing probiotic foods every day with every meal, you're going to be able, people have reversed depression and have gotten off their depression medication. So there's lots of things that are possible. I can't say that anything cures anything, but your serotonin will be produced and be utilized much better in a healthy environment than in an unhealthy environment. And also, I want to just say real quick about your DNA. Everybody has a certain genetic code in your DNA, and we've all heard that, if you have a certain genetic code, you might be susceptible to cancer or diabetes or whatever disease. Well, what most people don't know is you can alter your genetic code. You can alter your DNA with the foods you eat and the environment you're in. So what I'm teaching you is a way for you to use food and your environment to talk to your DNA, to restructure your DNA, and to have your DNA express health instead of sickness. So I'll go into more of that later, but that's just a little tidbit. Now, what I want to offer you here today is I've got 3 cool things that I just want to tell you about, and then we'll do the raffle. Number 1, if you want the book, the Probiotics for Perfect Health book with all the recipes we've got here today, there's probably going to be like 30 to 40 recipes in there for probiotics, plus all the instructions how to do all this. So everything I've talked about today, plus you'll get access to the video. We videoed this whole class, so if you forgot what's going on, you can rewatch the video or send it to your friends and family. So if you want the book and the video, that's $20. And you can talk to the people at the door for the book and the video. Now, I really want to support your health, so I've done an upgrade offer, because last time I did a class, I did this upgrade offer, and people loved it. The upgrade offer is, if you want the video, the book, plus 3 more of my Cafe Janae cookbooks that have probiotic recipes in them. So I've got my naturally leavened bread that teaches you how to do probiotics with bread products. I've got my condiments recipe book that teaches you how to put probiotics in all your condiments. And then I've got a cool summer treats and healthy barbecue book, because it's summer and people want to know how to make ice cream and slushies and healthy vegan barbecue and all that kind of stuff. So I'm doing that package with those 4 recipe books plus the video for $40. So just for $20 more, you can have like that whole package of 4 books and the videos. And I've had so many people asking me, okay, we want more advanced training. We want to know what you know. Like, where do you learn this stuff? And we want to know about it. So I'm offering an advanced training group coaching class, which will involve 5 weeks of group coaching, where you're going to get coached by me for an hour every single week on a teleconference. There's going to be question and answer sessions where you can ask me questions. This is going to be advanced topics, so I'm going to talk about stuff like the DNA and how you can change your genetic code and that kind of stuff. I'm also going to talk about advanced cleansing techniques and weight loss techniques. So we're going to have 5 coaching sessions, plus every coaching session comes with a like PDFs and diaries and journals and how-to guides and stuff like that. Plus you'll get the bonus that I already talked about, the package, so with the 4 books and the video. And at the end of the summer in September, I'm having a live conference. So it's going to be a live weekend conference where you can come, and instead of like trying to cram everything into an hour and a half, we're going to have a full day of advanced education for health and wellness and food training and how to take care of your DNA and your genetic code and your immune system and all the things that I want to teach you, but there's not enough time in the class. We're going to have the live event. So if you want the live event, the private group coaching, and the bonus package, the bundle that I just talked about, it's going to be $100. Normally it's like a $500 value, but I just want people to come. I want you to have access to this. So if you want that, it's $100. So you can either buy the book. You're not obligated to buy anything, but if you want, you can buy the book, or you can buy it for $20. You can buy the 4-book package for $40, or you can buy the live event the private coaching, and the bundle for $100. So that's what I just want to offer you, because I've had so many requests like, we want to know more, teach us more. And I'm a grad school student, so I can only do this on my vacations, really. So if I can't cram it into Christmas break and summer break, I can't do it. So that's my way of like offering the education you've been asking for in the summer break that I've got. So if you're interested in any of those, talk to the people at the door. And any questions?